Turn that red light back on. Kevin Keatts has picked up another valuable transfer portal addition.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Happy Tuesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. The third addition to the NC State men's basketball team was made on Tuesday. Louisville transfer guard Mike James officially commits to NC State, being the third new player that Kevin Keatts has added in this offseason. Kenton, now that it's official, how do you feel about Mike James coming over to Raleigh?
You know, I may look a little bit like Morpheus right now with the light shades and the hoodie on, but I'll tell you, lots of players are taking the red pill to NC State, and I absolutely love it. But very seriously, Mike James is kind of what we all agreed that we needed, right? We know that Coach Keatts needs and thrives off those combo guards who can get it done primarily as scorers, and their passing is kind of secondary. Even though we saw the ability of an MOC and how that kind of changes the dynamic of a Coach Keatts offense, we still need that guy that we can roll the ball out to and say, hey, go get a bucket. And he can do that. And I definitely think Mike James is very much so in that mode. He's very much so made in that kind of aura of a guy who likes to score the ball. He can do it at a high volume. He can do it with high efficiency as well, even if he didn't exactly get a lot of chances to show that at Louisville because of some of the struggles they had. I like this addition a lot.
We've talked about this a couple times before, but don't let Louisville's record this past season make you think that we're picking up two duds, essentially. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield and now Mike James, both joining us from Louisville. They were two of their better players. And like we said before, these are two solid basketball players, regardless of where they're coming from. They're two players with a lot of ACC experience. Being a guard in the ACC is really something that provides a lot of invaluable experience. And not just needing a guard, but picking up a guard that knows already the landscape of the conference that you play in. You can't emphasize how big that is. And speaking of big, yes, he is a 6'5" or 6'6" guard. So we've talked about Kevin Keatts possibly transitioning to a bit of a bigger lineup than maybe you're used to. You're going to see a lot more length for NC State this coming season. And Mike James being a long athletic guard who, like we said, more than likely will play probably the 2 spot, a little bit more of a combo guard than anything else. I think he can do a lot of things really well. I think you're going to see a bump to his numbers once he gets to NC State, playing with better other pieces around him, playing for a better coach in Kevin Keatts. It's a get that really needed to be filled. And so this is a win-win all the way around.
Big guards are the future. That's just the reality, right? If you look around at most of the teams that are dominating, UConn is dominating because they got multiple very long guards that are also very skilled. And Mike James is much in that same vein. He's a taller guard, but he can also shoot the 3-ball fairly well. He can also get to the rim and finish fairly well. Big guards are the future, and we've got a lot of the future going on here with just a ton of length, a ton of guys who are just, we're going to give a lot of teams fits with just how long we are defensively and even on the offensive end in terms of the ability to rebound and finish around the rim with all these guys that are just exceptionally long.
I've seen some potential concerns about Mike James's shooting numbers, and I had referenced before, if you are one of those people, I encourage you to go back and look at DJ Horne's line in his last season at Arizona State before making the jump here to NC State. The numbers for Horne and the numbers for James are eerily similar. And so you certainly hope that Mike James can make a very similar jump in production. And I think he can. When you add other pieces around you like Dontrez Styles, who can shoot it from deep, you have Brandon Huntley-Hatfield, who's a very athletic big, maybe one of the more athletic bigs we've had here in quite some time. You talked about MOC coming back. Jaden Taylor's coming back. You have a lot of different pieces that you can pick up bits and pieces of scoring from. And Mike James is coming from a place where him and Sky Clark They had to do a lot of the backpacking for most of those nights because Louisville had struggled so much. Possibly with other pieces around him that can supplement his play, you could see Mike James rise above something we've seen from him already. So I think this is a great pickup. He fills a much needed spot with a long, athletic two guard. NC State fans should be very excited about what Mike James brings to the table here.
And I hate to do this because I don't like talking negatively about other people. I hate cutting people down, but I mean, it's an objective truth that Kenny Payne and that coaching job at Louisville was abysmal. It was just god awful. And so when you look at these guys and you say, oh, they're from Louisville, so they're not good, you have to consider the fact that, again, that there were some things going on there that were you just can't allow it in a program, or else your program is going to go in the wrong direction. And we saw a lot of things along those lines happening there in terms of people throwing others under the bus publicly and all that good stuff. Not talking about players here. And that's what I mean by there was so much going on there that you're not going to have to worry about here in Raleigh. I'm sure that Huntley-Hatfield and James will both raise their game up from where it was in Louisville.
And another thing that I do find fascinating about Mike James now committed to NC State is James and Dontrez Styles were two players that Kevin Keatts had began building relationships with years ago. This postseason run and the whole world watching you, it can certainly turn their head back a bit, say, oh, okay, maybe I have been missing out on what those boys are doing in Raleigh. But I do think it's fascinating that two of our guys that we picked up here out of the transfer portal are two guys that have had a lot of previous interest in NC State. And so for Kevin Keatts, I'm sure it was very easy to pick up the phone and kind of pick up where you left off, and especially maybe more so Dontrez Styles than Mike James. But nonetheless, these are two guys that are familiar with Coach Keatts, probably familiar with a lot of the coaching staff. Certainly helps in the case of Mike James that he has a former teammate now playing for the Wolfpack and Huntley-Hatfield. A lot of the familiarity, a lot of the comfortability goes a long way in this type of thing. They say networking is all about who you know. Really feels like networking did us a solid here, picking up two players that we really feel like can make immediate dividends here in the red and white.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Both of these guys, I'm expecting to make big impacts next year. And again, these types of players are the type of guys that had they gone elsewhere, you would have heard about them. But instead, you're going to get to hear about both of these guys balling in Raleigh next year, which I'm excited for.
So with the addition of Mike James, I believe we are back down to now just one available scholarship. In just a moment, we'll talk about what Kevin Keatts should possibly look to do with it after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first sponsor of the day is Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. This, of course, makes getting tickets even faster and easier to all of your favorite MLB teams playing this summer. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with Gametime's killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes all of the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it, all on Gametime. I mentioned the views from your seat. You can get a panoramic view from your seat on the app so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, and again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Our second sponsor of the day is FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and MLB is now in full swing. FanDuel is the place to bet on each and every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's right, $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all coming on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The Locked On NFL mock draft is available now. You can find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking now for every NFL franchise. This includes live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Middle portion of our Tuesday show, now getting back into Kevin Keatts and this transfer portal. With the addition of Mike James on Tuesday, if my math is correct, we are back down to just one available scholarship. Kenton, where do you feel like the coaching staff should now channel their efforts to pick up next out of the portal?
I feel like we have a good amount of guards at this point. I kind of want to see one more either wing big hybrid or big. I believe we have 3 on the team at the moment with Modou, Ben Middlebrooks, and Huntley-Hatfield. I'd like to see another big. We've seen, and granted, I don't want to disrespect anybody here, but we saw with the Manny Bates season what happens when you only have 3 bigs on the squad. And we know that these 3 are of a different caliber than those 3. Let's just be honest, right? But I still kind of, something in me is giving me a feeling of saying one more big for safety wouldn't hurt.
There is still a lot that hinges on the decision of Modou. We don't have any updates there. I believe he is still in France, potentially weighing his options at playing professionally. If we are to lose Modou, then yes, the obvious decision is you need to go get another big, and you need to go get another big quickly. But if you operate under the idea that Modou is returning, I wouldn't exactly be surprised if we continue looking at guards. And on Wednesday's episode, we're going to give you a little bit of an update of additional guards that you may see come to fruition here sooner than later. But I think the coaching staff is still going to be looking at guards, and I think you're going to need a guard that can do some ball handling and some scoring. So in a sense, you're looking at basically a hybrid of a 1 guard and a 2 guard. You're going to need some supplemental help from MOC, and you're also going to need some supplemental help in scoring the basketball. And I think Mike James is a good addition. I think Dontrez Styles is also a good addition, but you're still going to need a bit more firepower just to ensure that Kevin Keatts is going to want guard play at the highest degree, and replacing guys like DJ Horn and DJ Burns is no small task. So it's going to be all hands on deck, and I would imagine they're probably going to be still looking at guards here in the next couple weeks.
Well, we know that Coach Keatts likes to run a lot of guard-heavy sets. We know he likes to run out lineups that are very guard-heavy. So, I mean, it wouldn't be too surprising. I'm one of those guys, man, that, fool me one time, shame on you, right? I don't want to see another year where if one guy goes down, we're depending on 2 bigs to play all 40 minutes every game. That to me seems like a fool's errand, especially with what we've seen in the past. So, I wouldn't be upset at a guard if it's a high-caliber enough guy, but I don't want to be one injury away from having 2 bigs having to play 40 minutes a night.
And this can be a little bit of a dicey subject. We kind of touched on it yesterday in talking about football. Are you surprised that there's only been 2 exits into the transfer portal? Do you potentially expect any more here in this next week before it closes?
Not really, because, again, I think that all of the guys who are still on the team have shown that they can show up and play big minutes and do positive things and all that. So, I'm not really surprised too much that more guys haven't left. But again, that speaks to the culture. It speaks to the culture. It speaks to belief in Keatts that guys are like, hey, I want to be here. I want to stick around for this, even if I wasn't the lead guy last year, even if I didn't get a ton of minutes last year.
It's honestly a bit of the same answer I had yesterday. In this case, in a sense, no news is good news. And the lack of guys that are jumping out of the program, it shows that people are bought in now. They're bought into what Kevin Keatts wants to do next season, continuing this momentum. You can't say enough about the postseason run, the magic that delivered. You look at Middlebrooks, you look at O'Connell, you look at potentially Diarra, you look at Jaden Taylor. These guys are now bought in, and they feel like they need to be where their feet currently are. They want to continue seeing what they can accomplish here in Raleigh. And so all of this so far is very positive buzz, and not seeing key pieces go into the portal like many other schools are currently experiencing, like Duke, for example. Do they have anyone left on the roster? I think they might only have a couple guys. I did see they pick up a couple guys out of the transfer portal, but Duke is looking at a complete, roster overhaul. NC State, for the first time in what feels like a long time, we're not going to have that much of an overhaul. We're probably looking at maybe 4 to 5 new faces, as we currently sit at 3. This is maybe the beginnings of Kevin Keatts truly establishing this culture. And picked one heck of a time to do it after going to the Final Four, but hey, man, we're here now. NC State basketball feels like they're on the brink of really being back here, and having players bought into the system, bought into seeing what else they can accomplish here, it can go a long way. And so it's a really good thing that you're only looking to build in supplemental pieces as opposed to just rebuilding the entire thing from year to year.
Well, Duke is looking at technology to clone Cooper Flag at least 3 to 4 times so they can have a lineup where it's Cooper,
Man,
and Summer.
Let us get one of those.
I'm just saying, that's just what the word on the street is. But in all seriousness, you're right. There is something to be said. But in the time where the average turnover for teams is about 40%, for us to be nowhere near that after a Final Four run, that's big time.
As I mentioned on Wednesday's episode, we're going to be talking about a couple more guards that have had mutual interest with NC State, so be on the lookout for those names. Coming up next, we're getting into a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something to close out our Tuesday show after a quick word from our sponsors. Our third sponsor of the day is Monopoly Go. Look, we've all been there, either as a player or as a fan. It's halftime, the scoreboard's not looking good, you're feeling low, and you're not sure if you and your team can pull out a win. But in that moment, that's when you dig deep. You lift your head up, you say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. No, we're not talking about basketball. We're talking about the smash hit mobile game, Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the same Monopoly we all know and love, but it's on your phone anytime with tons of new twists. They include leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies, and so there's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and you can charge other players for rent on your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboards. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go. Now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Last couple minutes here of our Tuesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. 3 topics, and we'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First, staying on the topic of basketball, like we mentioned, there's still no word on Modou, who's still in France. Another interesting name that we have not heard much from is MJ Rice. So not hearing anything from both of them so far in this process. Whole lot of nothing, a whole lot of something.
A whole lot of something, and it makes me very concerned. I'm not going to lie to you, because those are 2 big pieces going forward. Modou for next year, MJ Rice, who was supposed to be a building block going forward. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit worried. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little worried.
It's definitely a whole lot of something, and I feel like I'm more so worried about Modou, being that everything we just saw in the tournament can be a massive keep if you can reel him back into this roster for next year. Common phrase is that sometimes the best gets are the ones you already have. I don't think you can emphasize that any better in a guy like Modou, and so we're certainly looking for updates as soon as we can get them. Positive news only, please. Positive vibes. We need this guy to stay here in Raleigh and be a part of what we're currently building. And then you talk about MJ Rice, and he is a little bit more of a curious case. Took a redshirt season this year. He had a lot going on off the court, and we all certainly wish nothing but the best for him. Getting right with yourself is obviously the most important thing in this instance. But we also know that he was supposed to be an integral part to this team this year. We all know his pedigree, 5-star kid coming out of high school, McDonald's All-American. He can do all the things at a high level. But when we did see him on the court, it didn't really feel like he was the same guy, and that led to the red shirt. But now months later, and the transfer portal closes here in a week, do we assume that he's still on the team? Are we still up in the air? I'm not exactly sure. Well, at least we are not exactly sure. I would hope that Kevin Keatts has a much better idea than we do. But MJ Rice is another one that if you can get him back and he's back in prime MJ Rice form, he can take this thing up a couple notches. If NC State can get that guy back, he can be another one that the best gets are sometimes the ones you already have. And so for right now, as we wait, this is a whole lot of something. Second one here, now switching gears into football, Mark Packer of ACC Network has picked NC State football to win the ACC championship this December. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
I'm going to say a whole lot of something because it's rare to see NC State coming into the season with these types of expectations as a team. Every now and then we've had players come in with super high expectations. We saw it recently with Devin Leary being ACC Player of the Year preseason, all that. We saw it with Chubb being named ACC preseason Defensive Player of the Year, I believe, if not the Player of the Year during the season. But as a team, as a collective, the expectations have never been this high around Raleigh in terms of football for quite some time. So I'm going to say a whole lot of something.
It's definitely a whole lot of something. Expectations around NC State athletics. How in the world have we gotten here? You do feel a little bit apprehensive about that type of expectation being placed on this team, and just here in April, months before we even really start to kick this thing into high gear. These type of expectations are to be expected. We all know what happened this offseason. We all know the buzz around this team and really dreaming about what they can do. And expectations like this one, make no mistake about it, it's a really good thing. It means you're getting somewhere. It means people believe that you have something special here. Kent and I have talked about it at extensive lengths with the excitement around this team. It does feel like we have something here. And this expectation from Mark Packer, it won't be the last. I can tell you that much right now. You're going to see many more folks jump on the NC State train here as we get closer to the season, and that should generate a whole lot of excitement. So this is a whole lot of something. Last one here. Last week we talked about defensive tackle Joshua Harris, who was at NC State for 4 years before taking his talents down to Ole Miss and then re-entered the transfer portal this offseason. It was a sweepstakes between the Dirty Foot Club and a reunion with NC State, and he chose the Dirty Foot Club. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of something. The Harris boys picked the boys in baby blue, and good for them. You know, I'm not going to lie and say I wish you nothing but the best. I hope you all stay healthy. I hope you're on the field that week at Thanksgiving, and I hope that, you know, you enjoy the fruits of your labor over there at UNC. And that's pretty much all I got to say, but it's a whole lot of something to me because there's just certain things you don't do. You just don't do it. You just don't do it. But, you know, I am going to keep it PG as to keep our clean rating, Grayson. I promised you I would, and here I am. I'm keeping my promise. So it's a whole lot of something. It's a whole lot of a shameful something, but I digress.
I think you hit it perfectly on the head. There's some things you just don't do. And honestly, for that reason, it's a whole lot of nothing for me. And not to sound bitter, because last week I did think that Joshua Harris creating a reunion with NC State did make a lot of sense. But to do this, it's a whole lot of nothing, honestly. This is not to be disrespectful here. I don't think Joshua Harris changes much for UNC. I still expect to take control of that football game in late November. I still expect UNC to struggle a lot with the schedule they have, the pieces they have to replace, who is still their head coach. They're going to struggle with that because they have throughout his tenure here. This doesn't really change anything for the Dirty Foot Club. And it is a shame to see not one Harris, but two Harrises, not related, of course, but the name is the same, do us like this. There's some things you just don't do. And this is pretty much the prime example of one of them if you have ever worn the red and white of NC State. And so this is it's tough to see it go down like this. Like Kenton said, I do wish he stays healthy. And that's really about all I got for him. We'll see you when we see you. That's really about the extent of it. That'll do it for us here on Tuesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about the recent addition of Mike James to NC State basketball. Tell us what you think Kevin Keatts should prioritize in the portal next. And tell us what you think about Joshua Harris committing to UNC. Tell us what you think about Mark Packard's expectations of NC State football. And tell us how you think the Mo Diarra or MJ Rice situations will end up. Get all of that down in the comment box. Hit that subscribe button, and we will see you all tomorrow. Until then, go Pack.
Go back.